Well, hello and welcome back to A320 Flight Sim. Today we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to be doing a takeoff procedure, and this is my first request video. So I did have somebody who messaged me and asked if I could do the takeoff from Santa Ana, California, Orange County, otherwise known as John Wayne Airport. Now, John Wayne Airport in southern Los Angeles in Orange County is an interesting airport. And one of the things that's interesting about it is that it is in a very high densely populated area of, let's just say, people who are financially well off. And they don't like to hear noisy airplanes. And so there have been some serious restrictions from the John Wayne Airport on noise abatement. And if planes exceed certain decibels at certain points along the flight path, they can get fined. They usually a couple warnings first, but then the fines are up into the thousands and thousands of dollars. And if they keep violating, they can actually be banned from using the airport. And so the airliners that depart out of John Wayne take that very seriously, and they make sure that they follow these different spots exactly right, so that they're not getting in trouble and not getting fined and losing their ability to fly out of the airport there. So let's pop up and take a look at the chart here real quick. Now here's the chart for the stay for RNAV departure out of runway 20 right at John Wayne Airport. And we're going to take a look at a couple different things here. First of all, I want to look down here at the initial climb instructions down here in the bottom corner. I'm going to zoom that up so you can see it a little bit better. And so you can see it's telling us exactly what we need to do. Climb on course, cross Bickle, at or above 556 feet. We're going to make a short little left turn to FA, then again right, and cross Papao at or below 5,000 feet. And this is the big thing, at or below 220 knots. Then we're going to take a left turn to Lauren at or below 5,000, then a left turn to Hitcher, then to Tangle. Okay, so we got all these different things. And finally, we're going to get to Shear, where we're going to need to then be above, at or above 7,000 feet, and then we can keep on going. And really, at that point, we're really out of that danger area. One of the things I want to show you is this inset. So this is the different flight paths here you can see for some of the different departures. But the initial climb is the same for everybody. And so these are those ones we were just talking about that were in that instruction. So Bickle, you can see, is barely off the end of the runway. You've got to get up to 556 feet, barely off the runway. Then you're going to keep climbing. You're going to stay below 5,000. That's why the 5,000 is below the line. So you're going to stay below 5,000 feet when we get to Papao, and also Lauren there. But the big thing here is this first, if you look, these distances, we've got 1.1 miles from Bickle to Hefe, and then another mile to Papao. And we have to stay below 220 knots when we're doing that. And when you look up here at the map, the bigger map, you can see that when we get to that third waypoint, which is Papao, and that's where we can go above 220 feet. You can see that corresponds with hitting the coastline. So once we hit that coastline, we can start to accelerate, and we can start climbing again. We're going to stay at 5,000 feet, and then finally we get to Sure at 7,000 feet, which you can see up here is when we've made our turn back towards the coast, and we're going to come back in. And now we're getting up high enough where the noise isn't necessarily a big deal. So it creates a very interesting initial climb. And I want to show you another little snippet of a picture that I got off the internet that kind of demonstrates this a little bit better for you. So let's take a look at that. So this is that infographic I was telling you about. I think I grabbed it off of Facebook or something like that. But what it does is it shows you the difference between a typical flight path that you would expect taken off from most airports compared to what the protocols are at John Wayne Airport. So again, each airliner is going to have its own sort of procedures and everything like that. But here's kind of like, it says like a typical thing. So if you look at the blue path here, that's your typical most airliners when we take off. Your takeoff angle is somewhere between 10 and 15 degrees. I think if you watch any of my previous videos, we've talked about that we're aiming for that 15 degrees over that first initial few seconds of takeoff to get that good angle. And that's just where we like to stay pretty much at most airfields. There are a few other exceptions too now. The big thing though here is that at John Wayne, the typical angle is between 21 and 25 degrees. Now that is a big difference, and it may not seem like a lot, but when you take off from an airport and you think about kind of how far it feels like you're leaning back when that nose goes up and you start to go ahead and take off, and then now adding, in some cases doubling that angle of attack, and it's a significant difference that you can feel. Some people said it feels like you're on a rocket ship. The other thing that is different about John Wayne Airport is very short runway, right? So, like they say in this infographic, the runways at LAX, just right up the road here from this airport, 9,000, 12,000 feet long. Most major airports, you're looking at things like that, 10, 11, 12,000, sometimes 15,000 feet long runways. John Wayne is only 5,700 feet, so about half. So because of that, you need to spool up those engines. And what the procedure is normally we bring our engines up to 50%, let go of the brakes, and then bring it up into that flex for an Airbus here, which is usually around the 70% range or so. Here, they want you to go ahead and keep those brakes on, get those engines up to at least above 90%, and then release the brakes. So you want them totally spooled up, ready to go, and you're kind of doing that little takeoff start. And I'll show you how we do that when we do the actual takeoff here. And then you get this really steep angle again, this 20 to 25 degrees. Get up in the air quick. We got to hit that first bickle. We got to be 556 feet above at that point, and that's right off the end of the runway. So you got to go up there quick. Then where it gets different is when you get close to that first turn, that is about the time where you got to cut that thrust back, because you don't want to reach that 220 knots. And so you need to cut back on your engines, not have so much thrust going on, because we've got to decrease that sound level. Make a few little quick jogs to stay along basically right over the top of Back Bay there. If you look at the infographic, there's a little twisty turny kind of little river that dumps out into the Pacific Ocean there. And so we need to kind of stay along, kind of following that path a little bit. And then once we get up to the coast, that's where we can start to accelerate, and we can also start making that turn back in. Prior to that, we shouldn't be making any turns besides those few little jogs to stay kind of over Back Bay there. And so that's what we're going to take a look at. All right, so we're going to go ahead and jump in our Airbus A320. We're going to have our already lined up at the end of runway 20 right, fired up, ready to go, and then we'll talk you through what that's going to look like. One of the things that's really going to be different is I'm not going to be using auto thrust. I'm going to really be manually flying the plane to try to get to these twists and turns and the speed and the thrust that I need in order to make sure I am following the noise abatement rules here at John Wayne. So let's jump in the cockpit and let's check it out. So one of the things you're going to notice here in the cockpit is I have one of my instrument screens up here where you can see it. Ordinarily that is on a different screen that replicates where it is in the airplane, but I went ahead and I dragged it up here onto this main screen because I want you to be able to see the different things that happen as we're taking off in this extreme manner, so that you can see that angle of attack, you can see the speeds and the altitude and everything. Looking right in that middle is where you're going to see the angle. You see that number 10 across there right now, which is 10 degrees, and when we go ahead and start going, you're going to see that go rapidly up, and we're going to try and peg that thing around 20-25 degrees. All right, here we go. So we're bringing those engines up. Like I said, we're going to bring them up to 90%. We let go of the toe brakes, and we're off on our roll. Again, short runway here at John Wayne, so we got to get that speed up quickly. So I'm at Toga, which is max power.
100 knots.
Here we come, we're approaching V1.
V1.
Alright, we're off the ground. So we've got some positive climb here, so we'll go ahead and retract those landing gear. And you can see, look how far we're pitched up. We're way up there. This is way over what we would ordinarily do. You can see the speed is not really picking up. That purple triangle is fine. We're way down here at under 140 knots right now. Right, we are at 1,000 feet, so we've cleared. We're going to level off, and we're going to decrease our thrust massively here. And you can imagine, just look at that there. You can imagine what that feels like inside the aircraft, right? So all of a sudden, you're going up at 20 plus degrees, and then suddenly you pitch back down to around 10 degrees, and the engine's cut back. If you don't know that's coming, that could probably be kind of disturbing, I would think. I've never actually done this for real. But it just seems to me that would be really disturbing if all of a sudden your engine's cut back and your nose comes down rapidly. If you weren't expecting that, would be a little crazy. So, but now we've reached past those first waypoints. We can now start to start taking those little twists and turns here again. This is where we're kind of following that Back Bay, so that as we get closer and closer here to the coast, which you can see is rapidly approaching, then we can go ahead and do what we need to do, which is accelerate up to 250 knots, start making a left-hand turn here. We'll parallel the coast for a little while before we turn back in and head off towards our destination. So now here we are back in the cockpit here, and you're going to be able to see those instruments, and that we are at almost 4,000 feet, and you can see that our purple triangle here, which is our set speed, we are looking for 250 knots. You can see now I've gone ahead and turned on autopilot and the auto thrust, so the plane is flying by itself right now. So it is now just following the flight path and the programming that we put in before this flight started, and it's doing exactly what it wants to do. We're now going up to 7,000 feet, which is what our next waypoint will be, and we are right on track for what we're supposed to do. So that was that really difficult part of the initial departure there, where we had to reduce thrust, where we had to make sure we stayed underneath a certain speed, we had to watch our altitudes, we had to make sure we were over Back Bay, all that stuff that went on. Now we're out over the Pacific Ocean. We can go ahead and turn on the plane back the way it is. We're not flying manual anymore, and we can go ahead and continue on with our flight. And so we'll continue on. We're going to make a turn here in just a few minutes back in towards the coast, and that's really the flight. I'm going to keep flying just because, I mean, hey, I have a flight all set up all the way to Phoenix, and I enjoy the flying part. It's not going to be part of this video, but I'm going to continue on with this flight and take her all the way into Phoenix and land there and just kind of enjoy my time with that. But for right now, I just want to again say thank you so much for supporting us here at A320 Flight Sim. If you could just hit that like and subscribe, it's greatly appreciated. If you have any comments, drop me a comment. Remember, this was my first video that I've done that was a request from a viewer. So if you have a request for something you'd like to see, go ahead and put it into a comment or drop me a message, and I'll see what I can do. I'll get it on the list. I've got a couple more requests that I want to do, and then I've also got several ideas of my own that I'd like to get going. Try to get one of these videos up at least once a week. I shoot for maybe 2, kind of depends on my work schedule. But I hope you stick around and watch some more of these. And again, if you got some ideas, let me know. Otherwise, like and subscribe, share it with your friends. If you know anybody who might be interested in this, that would be fantastic as well. So again, thank you for being here on A320 Flight Sim today, and I hope you have a great day.